Hello and welcome. And in this video, I'm going to talk about sports betting and rate wager sizes. How much should one put on per game? For a lot of experts, say around 5%, and I think that's a very good number. Risk reward management is always job number one. And I was a little frustrated how at the last Raptors game when they lost, I think it was to Portland or some good team, that I noticed that they were 3.5 point underdogs in the game, and I thought that spread was way too low. I mean, this is just an easy bet, lay the points, and I do good with Raptors games, so I'm thinking stick with the strategy. Don't make stupid bets, meaning just don't bet just to play, and see how well I can do. Taking 1% of my bankroll, betting I think 6% per game, and for tonight exactly 6% per game. I got three wagers I put in. I'm laying a goal on the Nashville Predators, and the price that I got was plus 114, and I'm betting 6% of my bankroll that I put in. Calgary and Dallas, I'm laying a goal and a half on the Calgary Flames, plus 218. So I'm because it's 2-1 odds. I'm trying to win 6%. So I'm basically betting 3% to win a little over 6% of what my starting bankroll will be worth. And and if I see a plus 800 that I like, I mean, yeah, I'll bet 1/8 of what I normally do. And then if there's a large line, I'll talk about. I don't take too many, but within that, I'll take the small win. But I don't usually take minus 160s or anything big too often. I'm also making a play on the game between, where is it? The Islanders and Coyotes. Under 5.5 goals, minus 107. And I think on that one that it should be a minus 130, minus 135 kind of game. It's a very good one. So normally, my theory, not my theory, but it's no longer a theory, but since 1997, when I've been seriously into betting on hockey, that October is difficult. November gets easy. December is when you really want to start getting into it. So that this is the right time. NBA, of course, same thing. Get to know how things are transitioning and give yourself a decent amount of sample size. I have never done good in the NHL playoffs. So that's why it ends when the regular season ends. Okay, so I did a spreadsheet. Interesting one. And how this one works is this is how much you bet per game. Skill. What percentage of the time do you win long term? So this would be 56.5%. Then it's going to randomize a total of 194 results, giving you what your percent is. So you would have overperformed your fair luck in this situation, going 59.3%. Betting 13% per game, ROI of 480%. Every time it goes through 5 different random numbers, it readjusts your bankroll, thus readjusting your bet sizes. And the random numbers come in, and how it works is it's a random number between 1 and 1,000. So if it's 565 and less, it's a win. And if it's not, it's a loss. So therefore, and the new game up top, that just re-randomizes the numbers. So 13% is a lot. And you'd be gaining, and this is great results, getting 60%. It's hard to do. 10%, if you can win, or if you bet 10%, you'd have an ROI of 477. 5%, it's only 215, but most of the time these lower numbers would do better. 7 is 330, 271 for the 6. If, say, your skill level was worse, say 540, and you end up winning 57% of the time, and you're still good. If your skill level's winning 54 of 100 times in the 50-50 situations, and always adjusting other like minus 130 plus 110 equivalencies to its fair numbers so that you can win at that kind of rate, then that's still positive. In this case here, you'd have a pretty good return of 161%. 3% per game, it's only 76. 5, 134. 10, it'd be 225. 7. Now, if you go something like 20, you'd be losing. Now, if you had $1,000 and you're betting $200 a game, when you go on a long run, there's going to be a time where you're going to pretty much lose your entire bankroll. So that's a big reason why those numbers get so big when you bet so much. So let's re-randomize it again, and this is a spot where going 500 lost pretty much everything if you bet 15%. Betting 10%, you lost 95%. There was a bad result early on that pretty much would have crushed your bankroll. So if we lower it, it's probably going to get better. Okay, just 7%, 5%, 3%, 2%. So there's your risk. You go 500, and that's why I like to have this one come up. That you are going to end up losing if you don't have the skill. Because going 500, as you can see, this is what the house is going to take when situations like this comes into place. Now, if you were a bit better in this spot, say you won 51% of the time, well, that's not enough to beat the rake. So no matter which level you play at, you're going to see here that these losses just are excruciating, especially when you're parlaying your losses in here. Because if you continuously lose this decent amount and 1,000 turns into 800, it's a never-ending cycle going of losses. And you can see here, if you're winning 53% of the time, in this case betting 3%, this is again, these numbers must have put out a major bad luck streak. That's the only way I can explain why it's so extreme when it was 50% and 51. Because 53% you're going to be a long-term winner, barely. But in this case, if you're betting 5%, you're still losing. 3%, you're still losing. 1%, you're barely winning. And in a case here, if you had, let's see, 6%. So what would have happened amongst the simulation was there was a really interesting bad run. So if you're able to win 55% of the time and you're betting 7% of your bankroll, then what this would be showing you is that at some point in here, again, the mark or the results would have a lot of losses at one point. Here's a situation here where it loses 3, 4, 5, 7 out of 8. Here's losing 5 in a row and 7 out of 8 again. This was a good hot streak here. And that's the reality of this business, is you're going to go on runs that are fantastic and that are terrible. And understanding that they're going to come and being able to adjust to such events is very important. Poker, exactly the same thing as well. Let's resimulate this. 64%. That was just sick. So let's just bring this down a bit. I mean, this luck here, right off the bat, we can see a bunch of wins in a row. This is what I mean. Wow, I've never seen many variances like this where you can win 59% of the time when you should only win half and close to 200 results. But wow, that's fantastic if you could win that. Here's 50% that should have came, and of course, so let's do this. 550 did come in at 55%. So if you can hit these numbers, 107 and 87, 44.6% ORI, betting 7% a game. At 6%, you'd have about the same. 5% a little lower, 4%, and it's just going to continue to be lower on the smaller numbers. 7%, 44, 8%, 42, 9%, 36. That's what you're going to notice amongst this is the curve. You're going to see like a line going up and down. where 1%, half a percent risk means you're risking way too little. Thus, the rate of ascension that you're going to have is going to be very small. And then betting large, like again, let's see what happens. Betting 25%. Oh, you lose almost everything. Congratulations. That's the obvious. In fact, just for fun, let's put in, if you won like 80% of the time, 160 wins, 34 losses. And this thing this must mean you go broke. I'm guessing this what this might mean. I don't know. Let's go to 15%. Okay, there must have been a hot streak or something in here. Right in here. Well, it can work both ways, obviously, because when you get some decent luck, but you're always bound to give it back. So if we put this, let's be a realistic, like 63, like a really good player. And let's go 30%. How is it? Well, I guess because of the fact of that good luck streak. Let's try it again. Well, there's a spot where he lost everything. 83% down. Oh, this time oh my goodness. 136 wins, 58 losses. Well, mathematically, if you get on that run and you never have a bad streak, there's... Now, losing 300%. Now, there is a situation in here where, again, what it does is it takes 5 events. So if you bet 30% of your bankroll 5 times, you're technically betting 150%. So at 20%, oh, it's that, 15%. But using realistic results, though. And you can see here, 10% gives you, in this case, you have 60%. So let's just do 57%. That's the realistic level that a skilled player can achieve over a longer term time frame. Especially when you're you just don't bet when you're not supposed to. So therefore, you look at what 10% would be here. It would be 173%, 161.8 Fibonacci at 8. 7, 148, and it keeps going lower every time. And down 71% if you bet 22%. Doubling at 15, and only 17 at 18% of your bankroll. So it does seem to me that the 5, 6, 7% area is the proper way to go when deciding how much you want to risk on a single game venture. And as I mentioned with the parlays and any type of weird odds, if you got, say, 1,000 units you're playing with and you are betting 6%, that means you are going 60 per game. So if 60 is your unit size, then that would mean that if you are taking any type of plus odds, you have the choice. If it's like plus 110, plus 120, I guess you could suppose you could still bet the 60. But at plus 200, you can risk 30. And at plus 1,000, you can risk 6 to win 60. And then if you're playing like minus 200, I really think you have no choice but to take the small gain, risk 60 and only win 30 and stuff like that. But when you're playing that, you got to win just to break even better than 2/3 of the time. So I want to be at least 3/4 confident, if not closer to 4/5, when laying that kind of juice on those kind of numbers. But I got to be more disciplined than I have in the past, and not just forcing bets, as they say, or thinking, oh, just because it's the best available game. Or you look into the live games, you just say, oh, let's see what's available in NBA, when really all I seem to watch, if anything, is the Toronto Raptors. And I've historically looked at spots where if I were to just focus on that, when I see that they're a good play, you play them. When you see they're a good bet against, you bet against them. If you see miscellaneous things like over-unders or different type of quarter bets, and even live bets for that matter as well, then that would be probably the better way for doing it. And again, betting about 6% per game. And yeah, let's do another one here. 14% ROI if you bet 6, 21 at 5, 23 at 4, and there's 22. So these numbers would only go lower every time I take a different percentage point, as we can see in here. So generally speaking, once you're consistently making these bets closer to the 8, 9, 10%, you're kind of betting too much. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.